Long Island medium. Theresa Caputo is back in court today in the case of her ex-husband, Larry Caputo. The court sentenced her to 3 years in prison. But Teresa insists, I have enough evidence, I did nothing wrong. The court gave her a special opportunity and gave her 14 days. Within this period, Teresa must submit all the evidence to the court. Otherwise, the 3-year sentence will remain. Theresa Caputo had never imagined that her life would take such a sharp, unexpected turn. The beloved Long Island medium, famous for her ability to connect people with their lost loved ones, now found herself in a courtroom, not as a witness, but as the defendant. Her ex-husband, Larry Caputo, had filed a case against her, and the media frenzy surrounding it was relentless. The morning sun filtered through the large windows of the courthouse, casting long shadows on the polished floors. Reporters whispered and cameras flashed as Teresa entered, her calm exterior belying the storm of anxiety brewing inside. She walked to the defendant's table, her hands folded neatly, her heart racing but her mind alert. The judge, a stern figure with years of experience etched into the lines of his face, didn't waste time. "Theresa Caputo," he began, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. "The court has found it necessary to impose a sentence of 3 years in prison." The words hit Teresa like a physical blow. 3 years. The world she knew, her work, her fans, her life, was suddenly teetering on the edge of collapse. But Teresa was never one to surrender without a fight. She looked the judge in the eyes and said with unwavering conviction, "Your Honor, I have enough evidence. I did nothing wrong. Please, you must believe me." The courtroom held its breath. After a tense silence, the judge leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "Theresa Caputo," he said slowly, "in light of your statement and the seriousness of your claim, the court is granting a special opportunity. You will have 14 days from today to submit all evidence proving your innocence. If you fail to do so, the 3-year sentence will remain in effect." Teresa's heart raced, not with fear but with determination. She left the courtroom that day with a renewed sense of purpose. 14 days might seem short, but she knew she had allies. Her team, her friends, even some of the people whose lives she had touched through her readings, all stood ready to support her. Back in her home, Teresa immediately began the meticulous process of gathering everything she could. Files, videos, recordings, messages, anything that could demonstrate the truth of her actions. Nights turned into days as she worked tirelessly, often speaking softly to the spirits she believed were guiding her, seeking their comfort and wisdom. Every day brought new challenges. Some evidence was harder to find than she had anticipated. Some witnesses were hesitant to speak, but Teresa's resolve never wavered. She knew that the truth was on her side, and that belief gave her strength. On the 12th day, a breakthrough came. One of her former clients, a woman whose life Teresa had helped during a very dark period, agreed to provide a sworn statement confirming Teresa's innocence. With renewed hope, Teresa finalized her submission and personally delivered it to the court the next day, a stack of documents thick enough to reflect the gravity of her fight. The day of the review arrived. The judge carefully examined each piece of evidence, his expression unreadable. The courtroom was packed with journalists, supporters, and skeptics alike. The tension was palpable. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge looked up. "Theresa Caputo," he said, his voice measured, "after reviewing the evidence submitted, this court recognizes the validity of your claims. The charges are dismissed, and the 3-year sentence is hereby nullified." A wave of relief washed over Teresa. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at her supporters, grateful for their unwavering belief in her. She had faced a battle that could have destroyed her life, and yet she had emerged stronger, guided by truth and her unshakable spirit. As she stepped outside the courthouse, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city. Teresa smiled, feeling a sense of renewal. Her journey as a medium had always been about connecting with the unseen, helping people find peace. But today, she had also found justice for herself. And as the cameras clicked and the crowd cheered, Teresa knew one thing: no challenge was too great when one had courage, conviction, and the truth on their side. However, Michael Russo never believed in mediums, energy, or anything that couldn't be proven with a calculator or a medical report. He was an engineer, a man of logic, someone who prided himself on questioning everything. And for most of his adult life, he had been perfectly comfortable saying, "Nope, spirit world, not for me." But everything changed the day he met Theresa Caputo. Michael's wife, Olivia, had been a loyal fan of the Long Island medium for almost a decade. Every Sunday afternoon, she watched reruns, mouthing along to Teresa's spontaneous readings, excited gasp, and Long Island accent. Michael would walk past the living room, shaking his head. "Babe, you know this stuff isn't real, right?" Olivia would laugh. "One day, you'll understand." But that one day seemed farther than ever, because only 6 months earlier, Olivia's younger brother, Justin, had died in a car accident. Their family had been shattered. Olivia cried every night, clutching Justin's old hoodie, and Michael, helpless, heartbroken, could do nothing. One evening, after another sleepless night, Olivia whispered, "Michael, I think I want to try to get a reading." Michael didn't argue. He knew her grief was drowning her. So when Theresa Caputo announced a surprise book signing event in Manhattan, Olivia begged Michael to go with her. Michael agreed, reluctantly. The place was packed, hundreds of people holding books, tissues, and hope. Theresa Caputo stood at the front, tiny but powerful, her blonde hair perfectly styled as always. Michael crossed his arms the moment he saw her. "Don't worry," Olivia joked. "She's not going to bite you." Teresa signed a few books, chatted with fans, and then suddenly lifted her head. Her eyes scanned the room. She tilted her head to the right, her usual sign that spirit was talking to her. Then she pointed directly at Michael. "You," she said, "the gentleman in the blue jacket. I need to talk to you." Michael froze. Olivia's eyes went wide. Everyone else turned to look. Teresa walked toward him slowly, holding out her hand as though clearing a path through invisible air. "Spirit is practically screaming at me. You're the husband who didn't believe. You've been dragged here. Spirit wants to change that today." Michael felt his entire body stiffen. I'm fine, thanks." Teresa ignored him. A young man is stepping forward. He passed suddenly. Impact. "He says you feel guilty for not being home that night." Michael's heart stopped. He wasn't home the night Justin died. He had been working late, and the guilt had eaten him alive. But that wasn't public information. He had never said it aloud, not even to Olivia. Olivia grabbed Michael's arm. "Michael, listen," Teresa continued. "He's calling you, bro. He says, tell him I never blamed him. He says you've been replaying the night over and over. The what if I drove him thought? He wants that gone." Michael's throat tightened so much he could barely speak. Teresa placed her hand on her chest, eyes softening. "He loves you both, and he's saying he was never alone. He wasn't scared. A grandfather figure took him right away." Michael felt his knees weaken. His grandfather had passed 5 years ago, and Justin adored him. How could she know this? After the event, the organizers offered Olivia a short private reading because Teresa said spirit wasn't done with them. Michael protested, but Olivia insisted. The private room was quiet, dimly lit, almost sacred. Teresa sat across from them, elbows on her knees. "Michael, you built a wall around your heart a long time ago. Spirit says it's time to break it." Michael swallowed. I don't want false hope." Teresa nodded. "Fair? But what if the hope isn't false?" Then she closed her eyes. "Justin is showing me a silver chain, a broken clasp. You tried to fix it for him before he passed." Michael gasped. He had. He couldn't fix it. Teresa continued. "He says you're forgiven. He says stop punishing yourself because he never blamed you." A single tear rolled down Michael's cheek, his first since the funeral. Teresa leaned forward. "Spirit is saying, believe him. Not me. Him." For the first time in months, Michael felt a weight lift from his chest. Teresa suddenly smiled softly. "Oh my God, he's hugging you." Michael felt a chill wrap around his back, warm, gentle, unmistakable. He inhaled sharply, covering his mouth. Olivia sobbed, clutching his arm. "Michael, are you feeling it?" He nodded without speaking, eyes closed, letting the invisible embrace settle deep into his soul. When Teresa finally said the session was over, Michael stood up slowly, feeling like the ground beneath him had changed. He looked at Teresa and whispered, "I believe you." Teresa tapped his chest with her finger. Spirit did that, not me. Life didn't magically become perfect after that, but Michael changed. He talked about Justin openly. He smiled again. He slept better. One night, while cleaning the attic, he found Justin's broken silver chain, and without knowing why, without knowing how, he tried fixing it again. This time, the clasp clicked perfectly into place. Olivia cried when she saw it. Michael placed it in her palm and said, "I think Justin helped." From then on, whenever Theresa Caputo appeared on TV, Michael no longer walked past the screen. He sat beside his wife, arm around her shoulder, and whispered, "I am a believer now." However, on a quiet Saturday morning in Nassau County, the sunlight spilled gently into the kitchen of the Romano family home. Emma Romano was stirring her coffee, completely unaware that her husband, Daniel, had been planning something extraordinary for weeks, something that would shatter her skepticism, unlock old grief, and connect her with a presence she missed more than anything else in the world. Daniel watched her from across the room, his heart beating faster than usual. Today was the day. The surprise was arranged. The guest was already on her way. Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium. Emma had been a casual watcher of Teresa's show, a believer, but only halfway. She often said, "If Teresa came to me personally and said something no one else knows, then maybe I'll believe it fully." Daniel remembered those words well, especially because Emma had never recovered from losing her younger sister, Lily, 3 years earlier. She carried the grief like a shadow attached to her heartbeat. So today, the surprise wasn't just a gift. It was a chance to heal. Daniel nearly jumped. Emma looked up, surprised. They weren't expecting guests. "I'll get it," Daniel said, trying and failing to sound casual. He opened the door, and there she stood, Theresa Caputo, in full Long Island medium glory. Blonde hair, black heels, gold nails, and an energy that filled the entire porch like a warm spotlight. "Hi, honey, I'm looking for Daniel," she said with a smile. Emma's jaw dropped. "No way." Teresa laughed. "Well, surprise! Your husband planned a little something special today." Emma covered her mouth with her hands, eyes wide, already tearing up. "This can't be real. Oh my God, Theresa Caputo is in my house?" They moved to the living room. Emma was shaking, half from excitement, half from fear of what she might hear. Teresa sat opposite her, crossed her legs, closed her eyes for a moment, then lifted her head suddenly. "Okay, sweetheart, I'm already getting a young female energy, someone who says she left too soon." Emma froze. "Oh." Daniel swallowed hard. He hadn't told Teresa anything. Teresa continued, "She keeps showing me wings, and a silver bracelet, and she keeps saying, 'Tell her I still sit on the bed at night.'" Emma began to cry instantly. Oh my God, that's Lily. She had a silver butterfly bracelet. She slept in my room for months when we were kids." Teresa nodded gently. "She's telling me you feel guilty for not being with her the night she passed." Emma broke. She covered her face, her sobs shaking the room. Daniel moved closer but didn't interrupt. Teresa leaned forward. "She wants you to know it wasn't your fault. She says you needed sleep that night. She says, 'Stop punishing yourself.' I was never alone." Emma whispered, "I always thought she must have been scared." "No," Teresa said softly. "She wasn't scared. She says there were angels with her. She wants you to stop replaying that night. She says, 'Live your life and keep me in the laughter, not the pain.'" Teresa suddenly tapped her knee twice. "Okay, this is weird. She's showing me a pink shoebox filled with letters, hidden under a bed." Emma gasped. "How? Nobody knows about that. Not even Daniel?" Daniel looked at her in shock. "What shoebox?" Emma wiped her eyes. "When Lily was sick, she used to write letters for future Emma. I put them all in a pink shoebox under our bed. I haven't opened it in years." Teresa smiled warmly. "She says, 'It's time to open the box. You're ready.' And she's laughing and saying, 'Tell Emma the handwriting isn't as bad as she thinks.'" Emma burst into a tearful laugh. Teresa's expression softened again, and she placed her hand over her heart. She's telling me to say this very clearly. Thank you for being my sister, my best friend, my other half. I am still with you. I never left. Emma whispered, Lily? Teresa then stood up slowly and asked Emma to stand too. Honey, she's hugging you right now, and she wants me to say, stop hiding your paintings. Start living your dreams again. Emma looked at Daniel with trembling hands. How does she know I stopped painting? Teresa tilted her head with a smile. Spirit knows everything. However, on a windy autumn afternoon in Long Island, the kind of day when yellow leaves spin across the streets like tiny dancers, Theresa Caputo received a message that felt different. Not a typical message from Spirit whispering in her ear. Not a gentle nudge. This one came like a sudden cold rush through her spine. She was sitting at her kitchen counter, sipping her coffee, when she suddenly felt the unmistakable weight of a firefighter's presence, heavy boots, soot-covered coat, and a sorrow that clung to the air. Teresa quietly placed her mug down. Okay, who are you? She murmured to the empty room. She saw a flash, bright orange flames, a firehouse number painted on a red door, and a brass nameplate on a locker. She knew instantly a reading was coming. And Spirit wanted her at a firehouse. Later that day, Teresa drove to Station 47, an old firehouse in Suffolk County. The chief, Dan McAllister, had reached out weeks earlier, asking if Teresa might visit someday, not for a reading, but simply to meet his team. But Teresa knew this wasn't just a visit. When she arrived, the firefighters stood in a line, polite but incredibly skeptical. Teresa gave her usual big smile, her hair as perfectly voluminous as ever. Guys, listen, she said, hands up as she walked in. I don't know who dragged me here, but one of your spirits is following me like a shadow. The firefighters exchanged looks. They weren't sure if they should laugh or be nervous. Chief Dan said, Teresa, we've been through a lot this year. If someone's trying to reach us, we'd like to know. Teresa nodded, closing her eyes for a moment. The sounds around her softened. A deep heaviness filled the room. And then it happened. A young man appeared beside her, spiritually. Tall, early 30s, soot on his face, helmet tucked under one arm. Teresa lifted her hand. Okay, he's here. He's right behind me, and he says his name is... Sentence broke. Evan. The room went silent. Firefighters who had been standing casually now froze. Chief Dan stepped forward, his voice unsteady. Evan? Evans? Firefighter Ryan Evans? Teresa nodded gently. Yes, he keeps showing me the number 12. His locker, maybe? The chief swallowed. Locker 12 was his. The entire firehouse seemed to breathe in at once. Ryan Evans had died 8 months earlier in a warehouse fire. The department had mourned him deeply, but his death had left behind heavy, unresolved guilt. Teresa could feel it lingering in the air like unspoken smoke. Teresa spoke softly. He says he stayed behind to make sure you all kept going. He never left the firehouse. Suddenly, she felt a powerful surge of emotion, a mix of pride, regret, and longing. Ryan's spirit stepped closer. Teresa said, he wants to speak to his brother. Which one of you is Michael? A firefighter in the back, tall and strong but suddenly pale, raised his hand slowly. That's me, he whispered. Teresa walked toward him, guided by the spirit. He says you were there the night it happened. You were screaming his name. He wants you to stop replaying it over and over. Michael's eyes filled instantly. He covered his mouth with his trembling hands. I should have gone back in, he muttered. I should have pulled him out. Teresa raised her voice sudden and firm. He says stop. He says it wasn't your fault. He's showing me the ceiling collapsing. He says he knew what was coming before you did. He says you would have died too. Michael's legs gave out and he sank onto a bench, sobbing into his hands. The other firefighters gathered around him, their strong facade melting. Teresa swallowed, speech shaky. He says he never blamed you, not even for 1 second. Then something unexpected happened. Teresa felt Ryan's spirit pull her sharply toward the back hallway. Okay, he wants me to go somewhere, she said, following the invisible tug. The firefighters trailed behind her as she stopped in front of a steel locker with peeling paint. Locker 12, Ryan's locker, untouched. Teresa placed her hand on it. A wave of warmth washed through her. He says, "Open it." Chief Dan hesitated. "We haven't opened it since he passed. We were waiting for his mother to come back home from Florida." "Open it," Teresa repeated, voice softer. The chief finally unlocked it. Inside the locker were Ryan's boots, his jacket, a folded letter, and a small velvet box. "What's that?" Teresa whispered. Michael stepped forward, shaking. "That's my wedding ring box. I lost it that week." Teresa held her breath. Ryan's spirit appeared beside her again, smiling. "He says he kept it safe for you." Michael exhaled a long, broken sob. He took the box and clutched it to his chest. Teresa felt another message. "He wants me to tell you that he was proud of you every single day, and he still stands next to you when you climb into the truck. He says he rides with you." Michael nodded, tears streaming freely. One of the older firefighters, a man named Tom, stepped forward. "Teresa, does he say anything for me?" Teresa blinked, focusing. "He says to stop being so stubborn and go to the doctor already. Something about your knee?" The entire room burst into laughter. Tom groaned. "For real? Even in spirit, he's busting my chops." Teresa smiled. "He says he'll keep doing it until you listen." Slowly, the heaviness in the room softened into warmth, into love. Ryan's spirit, now brighter, stood behind Teresa. She could feel him stepping back, preparing to leave. "He says he's ready now," Teresa whispered. "He stayed because he didn't want you all carrying guilt. He says now you can let him go." The firefighters bowed their heads. Teresa felt Ryan's final words echo inside her like soft thunder. "Tell them I never left their side. Tell them fire doesn't win, love does." And then he was gone. The firehouse felt different afterward, lighter, as if someone had finally opened a window after a long, dark winter. Chief Dan walked Teresa to her car. "Thank you," he said. "I don't think we realized how much we needed this." Teresa touched his arm. "You were all his family. Spirits don't leave family behind." As she drove away, the firehouse lights glowed warmly in her rearview mirror. She knew Ryan was at peace now, and because of that, so were the men and women who risked their lives every day. Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome to my channel. I am Mina. Hope your day is so well. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe the channel.